The departure gate of LAX buzzed with quiet energy. Businessmen on phones, families corralling children, couples on honeymoon highs. Among the typical first-class flyers stood a man who drew both attention and suspicion. He wore a worn leather jacket, faded jeans, old sneakers, and a beaded necklace that looked like a child made it at summer camp. No security detail, no designer luggage, just a single battered backpack slung over one shoulder. The flight attendant at the gate, Madison, Green eyed him with skeptical eyes. She was a tall woman with perfectly pressed hair, bold red lipstick, and a pristine uniform that looked like it had been ironed with military precision. She'd been with the airline for over 15 years. She didn't tolerate mess. And this man standing in front of the first-class gate like he belonged there was a walking mess. She whispered into her headset, "Possible seat confusion. I'll check." Then she approached. "Excuse me, sir," she said, voice sweetened with artificial politeness. "First-class boarding only." The man turned slowly and smiled. It was a soft smile, disarming, gentle. "Yes," he said, handing over his boarding pass. She scanned it quickly, expecting the telltale red alert that meant he was in the wrong place. But the screen flashed green. Seat 1A, first class. She blinked, then looked back at him, scanning him with her eyes this time. He was calm, not defensive, almost amused. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She nodded stiffly. "Of course, Mr. Reeves." A second passed before the name registered in her head. Reeves. Keanu Reeves. The man everyone on the internet called the nicest guy in Hollywood. But he didn't look like a movie star today. He looked like a tired man just trying to disappear into the background. Madison forced a smile, stepping aside. "Right this way, Mr. Reeves." As he walked past her and down the jet bridge, she narrowed her eyes at the necklace around his neck. A strange, clunky thing, hand-beaded, uneven, with faded letters that spelled out something she couldn't quite make out. Why would a man like that, rich, famous, mysterious, wear something so childish? Inside the cabin, once the cabin door closed, Madison began her rounds. First class was her domain. She took pride in giving the highest service. But as she approached 1A, she couldn't help but glance down at the necklace again. It was clearer now. The faded letters spelled Joey, a few plastic stars, a green string tied off with a lopsided knot. It looked like a kindergartner's craft project. She leaned in to offer him water. "Can I get you something to drink, Mr. Reeves?" He smiled up at her. "Just water, please. No ice." She nodded and turned quickly, irritated with herself. Why was she being thrown off by a necklace? In the galley, she whispered to her co-attendant, Dana, "Did you see what he's wearing? That necklace? You think it's for a movie role?" Dana laughed. "You know Keanu, he's unconventional." "But it's hideous," Madison said, "like something out of a cereal box." Dana looked at her. "Still, he's Keanu Reeves. I'd be careful how you talk about him." Madison smirked, not listening. "I'm just saying it's first class. There's a certain standard." The incident, the flight was 3 hours in, cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet when the moment happened. Keanu had just returned from the restroom and was seated again, adjusting the overhead light. Madison walked by offering hot towels. She leaned down and whispered, just loud enough for the nearby passenger to hear. "You know, Mr. Reeves, some of our guests find it distracting when passengers wear loud accessories. That necklace, for instance, it's not very fitting for first class." A sharp silence fell over the cabin. Keanu turned to her slowly. "You're saying my necklace is inappropriate?" She laughed lightly, trying to play it off. "Just trying to maintain a certain ambiance, that's all. We have celebrities in this cabin who," he smiled gently. "I am a celebrity." Her face flushed. Passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably. One leaned over and whispered, "That's Keanu Reeves, you know, from John Wick, The Matrix." A child a few rows back called out, "Mom, that's the guy from Toy Story, right?" Keanu chuckled, then looked back at Madison. "It's okay. he said softly. It's just a necklace. But his eyes, those kind, tired eyes, held something deeper, something wounded. I'm sorry, Madison mumbled, clearly shaken. I didn't mean... He nodded politely and turned back to his book, Whispers and Regrets. The rest of the flight passed in an awkward haze. Madison couldn't shake the embarrassment or the feeling of shame creeping into her chest. Dana avoided her gaze. The passengers stared with that look people have when they've just witnessed something uncomfortable they wish they hadn't. But what gnawed at Madison most wasn't the public humiliation. It was the necklace. The absurd, ugly, cheap necklace. Why did he wear it? Why didn't he snap at her when she mocked it? She snuck glances at him throughout the flight. He wore it proudly, fingers brushing against it from time to time like it grounded him, a rival and aftershock. When they landed, the passengers applauded politely, one of those customary landings where people were just happy to be back on solid ground. Madison stood at the front, forcing a smile. Keanu approached. I hope you have a better day tomorrow, he said quietly. And with that, he walked off. Dana raised her eyebrows. That was generous of him. Madison didn't reply. Back in the crew terminal, her manager pulled her aside. We received a complaint from a passenger in first class, he said. They said you commented inappropriately to another guest. Her stomach sank. It was a misunderstanding. The passenger was Keanu Reeves. A pause. We'll need to follow up on this, he said. The internet doesn't forget. 12 hours later, a clip of the incident was online. Someone in first class had filmed it. The title read, Flight attendant mocks Keanu Reeves for wearing child's necklace. His response is pure class. It had 6 million views in 2 hours. Madison's inbox was flooded. Her name, blurred out in the video, was already being discovered. This woman should be fired. How dare she mock someone like Keanu? That necklace probably means something. Who is she to judge? Madison sat alone on her couch, watching the video play over and over again. The way he smiled, the way he forgave, the way he walked, away without anger. And that necklace. That damn necklace. The morning after the video went viral, Madison Green stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, her eyes raw from lack of sleep. She had tossed and turned all night, haunted by the soft disappointment in Keanu's voice. His words hadn't been cruel or vindictive. That somehow made it worse. She pulled her phone from the sink, already dreading the notifications. The video now had 13 million views. The top comment read, Imagine humiliating one of the kindest souls in Hollywood over a necklace your own kid might have made. Keanu deserves better. Madison hadn't told anyone yet, friends, family, or colleagues. But in a world ruled by social media detectives, her name wouldn't stay hidden for long. Her phone rang. Madison, it's Colin from HR. The voice on the other end said, calm but clipped. We need you to come in today. There's been a development. Madison let the water run into the sink, steam fogging the mirror. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like putting on makeup. The necklace that wouldn't leave her mind, driving to the airline headquarters in silence. Madison replayed the moment 100 times in her head. Her words, his face, that strange little necklace with its plastic beads and crooked letters, Joey. Why had it stuck with her? She parked in the staff lot and sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Get it together, she whispered to herself. HR office, 10:15 a.m. Colin sat across from her with a printed image in hand, a still from the viral video. You're not named in the video, he said. But people have started piecing it together. The internet is fast. I didn't mean for it to go that way, Madison said, voice thin. It was just a comment about the necklace. I didn't... He held up a hand. That necklace. That necklace is part of a story that's been around for years. She blinked. What do you mean? Colin sighed and turned his monitor toward her. A photo appeared on the screen. Keanu Reeves at a charity gala. Several years ago. He was wearing the same necklace. Then another photo, this time candid, in a small village in South America. Again, the necklace. There's a reason he never takes it off, Colin said. The story's been shared online before, But now people are talking about it again. You should read this. He handed her a printed article titled, "The Necklace That Keeps Keanu Grounded. The Quiet Story Behind the Beads." Madison skimmed it, heart pounding. In 2013, Keanu Reeves visited a small orphanage in Guatemala, anonymously at first. He spent several days there helping rebuild classrooms destroyed by flooding. One little boy, 5 years old, named Joey, took a special liking to him. On the last day, Joey gave him a homemade necklace and told him, "So you don't forget us." That necklace, with its mismatched plastic beads and faded letters, has never left Keanu's neck since. Joey died just 3 months later from complications related to untreated pneumonia. Madison stared at the page, hands trembling. "I didn't know," she said. Colin nodded. "That's the problem. You judged without knowing." He leaned back in his chair. "We're not firing you, Madison, but you're being placed on leave. 2 weeks, maybe longer." Shame and silence. The following days passed in a blur. Madison kept her phone off, avoided the news, avoided people, but she couldn't avoid herself. She found herself thinking about Joey, a child from halfway across the world whose legacy hung around the neck of a famous man. A legacy she mocked. Oh. Prologue. A different kind of famous. It was a quiet Sunday evening when Keanu Reeves found himself walking the halls of a small hospice center tucked into the hills of Santa Barbara. No cameras, no handlers, just him, a backpack, and something he hadn't worn in over a decade, a smile not weighed down by grief. A nurse recognized him but said nothing. She knew better than to speak the name of a man who'd learned to live under the weight of his own legend. The only thing different about him that night was the necklace. Colorful, plastic, childlike, out of place in a room that reeked of bleach and final goodbyes. Scene 1. A letter received. Madison didn't expect a reply. When she mailed the letter to Keanu Reeves' publicist's office, it was meant as an act of closure, a way to purge her shame. What she didn't know was that Keanu did read his mail, especially letters that felt like they were written with tears. He sat alone in his modest kitchen, bare walls, hand-carved wooden furniture, and an espresso machine that looked too expensive for someone so minimalist. The letter sat in his lap. The last lines read, "Your grace in that moment taught me more than any reprimand ever could. If I could go back, I would. But all I can do now is try to be better." He folded the letter, gently. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He took out a black leather notebook from his drawer. Inside were only names, some underlined, some crossed out. One starred in red ink, Joey. He added a new name, Madison Green. Scene 2. The woman who taught him to mourn. To understand the necklace was to understand Ava Mendez, the woman who had changed everything. Ava was not a celebrity. She wasn't someone the tabloids cared to chase. But in Keanu's world, she was a lighthouse in fog. She was a volunteer English teacher he met during a grief retreat in Vancouver in 2000, shortly after the loss of his daughter and Jennifer, Syme, the child's mother. She was soft-spoken, firm in her beliefs, and had a way of staring at silence without flinching. They met during a session called Grief in Movement, where people danced out their sorrow. Keanu had only attended because someone dared him to. He never expected her to take his hand and whisper, "Let the ache guide you. Don't resist it." That night they sat under the stars and shared stories. She told him about losing her sister, in a fire. He told her about the hospital room that never heard a baby's cry. She was the first person who didn't treat him like glass. Scene 3. The fire that lit his purpose. It was Ava who convinced Keanu to take his first trip to Guatemala. "Do something for someone who can't repay you," she'd said. "You'll find parts of yourself you thought died." The trip was never publicized. Ava arranged everything with a local church and orphanage. That's how Keanu met Joey, a 5-year-old with wild curls, 2 large shoes, and a giggle that could break down walls. Joey was different. He didn't know who Keanu Reeves was. He just knew that the quiet man with the sad eyes could make paper airplanes better than anyone else. They bonded quickly. Joey would follow him around the village, calling him TOK. On their last day together, Joey handed him the necklace. "So you don't forget us," he said. Later that night, Ava told Keanu, "You look lighter." He smiled. "I think Joey just saved my life." Scene 4. The news 3 months later, a letter arrived. Ava handed it to Keanu at her cabin in Alaska, where he had gone to escape the noise of Hollywood for a while. The envelope was from Abuela Elena, the director of the orphanage. Inside was a short note. "TOK, Joey got very sick. We tried. We really did. He passed peacefully in his sleep. He wore the bracelet you gave him. He never forgot you. Love, Abuela Elena." Keanu didn't speak for hours. That night, Ava found him in the snow, digging with his hands. He built a small cairn of stones and placed a candle beside it. From that day on, he never took the necklace off. Scene 5. Return to the Sky 1. Week after Madison sent the letter, she got a message from an unlisted number. "You're invited to join a private humanitarian flight to Guatemala as a volunteer steward. Expenses paid. Purpose, Project Joey. Departure, Saturday, 6:02 a.m. KR Foundation." She read the message 10 times. Was this real? That Saturday she stood at the private terminal. She thought it was a joke. But then a black SUV pulled up. The door opened. It was him, Keanu. Same calm eyes. Same humble air. Same necklace. "Ready to go?" he asked. Scene 6. Guatemala again. The orphanage was different now. Bigger. Cleaner. Still full of laughter. A new wing had just opened, the Joey Mendez Children's Center. It was painted sky blue and lined with photographs of smiling children. Madison walked with Keanu, helping distribute art supplies and serving food. At one point, a small boy tugged on her skirt. "Can you help me make one?" he asked, holding up string and beads. She nodded and sat with him. "What should it say?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "Forever." That night, Madison made one too. It was her first time crafting something since she was a teenager. Her necklace read, "Listen first." Keanu saw it and smiled. Scene 7. Forgiveness later. Madison stood on the rooftop of the center, staring at the stars. Keanu joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I got your letter," he said, handing her one. "I didn't expect a response," she replied. He looked out over the hills. "Joey taught me something I forgot. That love isn't about how much you give. It's about what you choose to remember." She glanced down at his necklace. "I'm sorry I mocked it." He nodded. "You're not the first, you won't be the last. The difference is you chose to learn." They stood in silence for a while. A soft wind blew across the roof. "I think," Keanu said finally, "Joey would have liked you." Prologue. The echo of kindness. The necklace wasn't made of gold or silver. It wasn't sold in any boutique. Its beads were mismatched, its string frayed. But around the neck of one of the world's most recognized men, it became a symbol, a quiet resistance against forgetting. In a world where luxury was currency and fame often demanded detachment, this necklace stood as a rebellion of memory, and, for every person who ever felt invisible, who was passed over, shamed, or silenced, it began to mean something far bigger than even Keanu could imagine. Scene 1. The beginning of a movement. A week after the trip to Guatemala, Madison returned to Los Angeles different, not changed, transformed. She couldn't shake the feeling of holding those tiny, curious hands, children stringing together beads like memories. Each color had a purpose: blue for courage, green for peace, yellow for hope, red for love. The same colors Joey had chosen all those years ago, and so in her small one-bedroom apartment, Madison opened a box of supplies. She invited friends over, teachers, nurses, baristas, neighbors. She told them the story, not of Keanu, but of the necklace, of the child behind it, the lesson it carried. They called it Beads of Grace. and it spread like wildfire. Scene 2. Social media eruption. It started with a photo. A little girl in a hospital bed in Arizona wearing a handmade necklace. The caption read, "Made this today in our oncology craft class. I call it Tomorrow's Necklace, inspired by Joey." Beads of grace. Then came a veteran in Seattle, a hospice nurse in Johannesburg, a classroom of orphans in Cambodia. Within 2 months, the hashtag #OurBeadsOfGrace trended globally. Not because of marketing, not because of celebrity endorsements, but because of what it meant to remember, to honor, to see people again. Every necklace became a vow. Scene 3. Madison on stage. It wasn't long before Madison was asked to speak. At first, she declined. She didn't want to be in the spotlight. But Keanu called her. "You don't have to tell them about me," he said. "Just tell them why you care." So she did. At a TEDx event in San Francisco, standing on a crimson carpet beneath harsh lights, she told the story, not of humiliation or celebrity redemption, but of Joey. "I once mocked a man for wearing something I didn't understand," she said, voice shaking. "But I learned that sometimes the most powerful legacies are built from the quietest stories." She showed her necklace. "Listen first." The room fell silent. Then the applause started, and it didn't stop for a long time. Scene 4. The letter from Ava. It came unexpectedly, sealed in parchment paper, hand-delivered by a woman who said nothing except, "From her." Inside was a short message. "Keanu told me what you're doing. I am old now. My hands don't thread beads like they used to, but my heart is young again watching this grow. Joey would be proud. Love fiercely. Ava." There was also something else in the envelope. A small bead, worn smooth with age. On it, hand-carved letters. J. Madison wept, holding it. Scene 5. Return to the sky, again. Keanu hadn't planned to return to Guatemala so soon. But there was a new reason. A bigger one. The Guatemalan government had heard of the movement. With the help of international donors, a new project was launched. The Joey Foundation School for Creative Healing, focused on using art and storytelling as therapy for trauma-affected children. Keanu asked Madison to go with him, this time, not as a former flight attendant, but as a founder, as a friend. They boarded the same private jet, but the energy was different. Keanu looked out the window as the plane ascended. "You know," he said, turning to her, "I never wore this necklace because I thought it would change others. I wore it so I'd never forget who changed me." Scene 6. The ceremony. The day of the school's dedication was bright and warm. Children danced in the courtyard, their laughter rising into the cloudless sky. Musicians played marimbas and vendors sold hand-stitched bracelets and beads. When it was time for the ribbon cutting, Keanu didn't take center stage. He stepped back. Prologue. The spark that lit the world. It was never supposed to be global. It was never supposed to make headlines. It was never supposed to involve politicians, tech CEOs, actors, or Nobel laureates. It was supposed to be a quiet promise. A necklace, worn in memory of a child who mattered, but kindness has a way of breaking through everything. Scene 1. Late night in New York. Madison had just landed at JFK. She was jet-lagged and emotionally exhausted after the ceremony in Guatemala. Still, her phone buzzed nonstop. She ignored it until a text from her brother popped up. "Mads, you're on CNN, check Twitter now." Groggy and curious, she opened the app. There it was, a side-by-side photo of Keanu Reeves, one from an old movie premiere, and one from the school dedication in Guatemala. Both showed the same necklace, same beads, same worn thread. The caption read, "He never took it off, and now the world knows why." The necklace story, Beads of Grace, Joey Lives. By morning, the post had been retweeted over 4 million times. Scene 2, the interview request. 3 days later, Madison was sipping coffee at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn when her phone rang. It was a blocked number. "Hello?" she answered. A calm, familiar voice replied, "Hi, Madison. This is Oprah Winfrey." She nearly dropped the phone. Oprah had seen the story. She didn't want gossip. She didn't want celebrity drama. She wanted truth. She invited Madison and Keanu to join her for a televised conversation titled, "Legacy in a Bead, the Necklace That Changed Everything." At first, Madison hesitated. She never sought fame. But Keanu reminded her, "This isn't about us. This is about Joey, and every kid like him." They agreed. Scene 3. The world watches. The interview aired on a Sunday evening across more than 40 countries. The set was warm, minimalist. Just 3 chairs, a soft lamp glow, and a quiet dignity. To the moment, Oprah began gently. "Oprah, you wore this necklace for years, Keanu. No one really knew why. Why now, Keanu?" "Because it's not just a necklace, it's a reminder of a little boy who made me believe again. Joey didn't have a long life, but he lived a big one." Madison, voice trembling, "I once laughed at him, and now I wear my own, to listen, to love, to never dismiss again." Oprah, "Some people say this story feels too perfect, that it's scripted, too sentimental. Keanu, then let them come see the school. Let them talk to the kids. Let them meet. Ava, none of this was planned, it was just right." By the end of the interview, millions were crying, and the Joey Foundation received over $11 million in donations in less than 48 hours. Scene 4. The ripple becomes a wave overnight. Movements began to form. In Mumbai, school children crafted beads of grace for flood victims. In Canada, Indigenous artists launched healing threads inspired by Joey's necklace. In Japan, monks created a meditation circle using hundreds of beads, each representing a prayer for forgotten children. In Rwanda, trauma survivors began creating bead bracelets with colors unique to their tribes and stories. A single child's memory had become a cultural bridge, crossing race, language, war, and even religion. The necklace was no longer just about remembering Joey, it was about remembering ourselves. Scene 5. The senator's speech in Washington, D.C. Something extraordinary happened. Senator Evelyn Crawford, known for her tough, stoic persona, stood at the Senate floor, holding a necklace made by her autistic grandson. Her voice quivered as she spoke. "I've spent a lifetime writing laws, but my 7-year-old grandson Nathan taught me something no bill ever could. This necklace isn't decoration. It's declaration of empathy, of resilience, of listening to stories that aren't our own." She introduced a bipartisan bill called the Joey's Promise Act, aimed at funding art therapy programs in underserved schools. It passed unanimously. Scene 6. The unexpected visitor. One evening, Keanu and Madison were preparing for another charity event when the doorbell rang at Madison's apartment. It was a young man, early 20s, nervous, holding something in his hand. "Are you Madison Green?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm Joey's brother, Micah." Silence. Then tears. He had tracked her down after seeing the Oprah interview. He was just a kid himself when Joey passed. "I wasn't ready to talk about him before," he said, "but now, I want to help." He handed her a small cloth pouch. Inside was a bead carved from Joey's old toy airplane. "I made this the day he died," Micah whispered. "I couldn't wear it, but you should have it." Madison hugged him tight. "No, you should wear it." So they both did. Scene 7. Remembering quietly. That night, Madison sat alone, scrolling through torn beads of grace posts. It felt surreal, from being a flight attendant mocking a man's necklace, to this. She remembered a quote her mother used, to say, "When the world watches, show them who you are. But when no one's watching, show them who you love." She walked over to her dresser, where she kept the original necklace from Ava. She lit a candle, closed her eyes, Thank you. Joey, she whispered. You changed me. You changed us all. The world was watching now. But Joey had always seen. Prologue. The quiet man. Some people carry their stories like a cloak, hidden beneath layers of silence and solitude. Others wear theirs openly, like a necklace, a visible token of pain and healing. Keanu Reeves was known to the world as the man who never took off his necklace. But behind that symbol was a man who had lived through silence, a silence few understood, and fewer still could break. Scene 1. Before the beads years. Before the world knew the story behind the necklace, Keanu was a man quietly haunted by his past. His childhood was a mosaic of fractured homes, lost friends, and the deafening quiet of grief. Born to a mother who battled addiction and a father who disappeared before he could remember his face, Keanu learned early to protect his heart. He built walls around himself, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. Scene 2. The weight of silence. Despite success on screen, Keanu often felt invisible off it. The Hollywood spotlight didn't illuminate his wounds. It only deepened them. He wrestled privately with depression and anxiety, battling the ghosts that visited him in the dead of night. His necklace, a simple string of mismatched beads, was the only thing that kept him tethered to something real. Each bead was a memory, a prayer, a moment of hope in a life that often felt shattered. Scene 3. Joey's arrival. When Joey entered his life, everything changed. Joey wasn't just a child in need. He was a spark, a catalyst for healing neither of them knew they desperately needed. But for Keanu, it wasn't immediate. The first few months were a struggle. Joey was scared. Keanu was cautious. He didn't want to be another person who failed. Joey, Scene 4, breaking the silence. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One night, after a long day at the hospital, Joey asked Keanu to tell him a story, not about movies or magic, but about himself. Keanu hesitated, the weight of years pressing down. But then he began to speak, softly, truthfully. He spoke of lost fathers, lonely nights, and the necklace he had worn since he was a child. Joey listened, eyes wide with understanding. Scene 5. A shared language. From that night forward, the necklace took on new meaning. It became a shared language between them. Joey added beads, a red one for courage, a green one for hope, a blue one for friendship. Keanu began to open up more, sharing stories he had buried for years. The necklace was no longer just his. It belonged to both of them, a symbol of their bond. Scene 6. The price of fame. As Keanu's public profile grew, so did scrutiny. The media speculated endlessly about the necklace's significance. Some mocked it. Others dismissed it. A few even accused him of exploiting Joey's story. The pressure was immense. Keanu felt torn between protecting Joey's privacy and honoring the truth they shared. Scene 7. Madison's role. Madison had become a close friend and confidant. She understood the complexities Keanu faced, the desire to do good without losing oneself in the process. Together, they decided to create the Joey Foundation, a safe space where children like Joey could find healing through art, storytelling, and community. Madison helped Keanu navigate the spotlight, reminding him that vulnerability was strength. Scene 8. The turning point. The turning point came during a gala event in Los Angeles. Keanu was invited to speak about the Joey Foundation. As he took the stage, he felt the familiar weight of expectation. But instead of a rehearsed speech, he chose honesty. He shared his story, the pain, the silence, the hope. The audience was silent, then erupted into applause. Keanu realized that breaking his silence was the greatest gift he could give. Scene 9. Healing together. The foundation grew. Joey's story inspired countless. Others, Keanu and Madison, traveled the world, visiting hospitals, schools, and communities. They listened to stories of pain and resilience. They offered beads to those who needed them, a tangible reminder that they were not alone. Scene 10. Legacy of the necklace. The necklace had come full circle. From a symbol of personal pain, it had become a beacon of hope. Keanu understood now that his silence had been necessary, but sharing his story was essential. The man behind the necklace was no longer hidden. He was visible, vulnerable, and victorious. Epilogue. The man behind the silence. Keanu sat quietly in his home, the necklace resting on his chest. He thought of Joey, of Madison, of all the lives touched by their journey. He smiled softly. Silence had once been his refuge, but now it was his message, and it was louder than any words. Prologue. The dawn of new beginnings. Hope is not a fleeting moment. Hope is a thread, delicate yet unbreakable, weaving through the tapestry of human lives. In the story of the necklace, hope had become the ultimate legacy. As the world stood, witness to a journey born from pain, silence, and courage, a new chapter was beginning, a chapter not just of healing, but of lasting change. Scene 1. The morning. After the storm, it had been nearly 2 years since the necklace story went viral. Since the world learned about Joey's courage, Keanu's silence, and Madison's transformation. The Joey Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. From a small group meeting in a Brooklyn apartment to a global movement spreading kindness through beads, stories, and shared humanity. This morning, Madison awoke to a message that made her heart race. It was from an international coalition of educators and philanthropists offering to partner with the foundation to bring their healing programs to schools worldwide. A future woven with hope was no longer a dream. Scene 2, the Global Summit. In a sprawling conference center in Geneva, leaders from over 60 countries gathered. The agenda was simple but profound: how to integrate the Joey Foundation's model into public education, focusing on trauma healing, empathy building, and creative expression. Madison stood at the podium, her voice steady but charged with emotion. Every child deserves to be heard. Every story deserves to be honored. Joey taught us that. His necklace is not just beads. It is a call to action. The room erupted in applause. Keanu sat beside her, quietly proud, the necklace visible beneath his open collar. Scene 3. Voices of the Future. Among the attendees were children from communities touched by the Foundation's work. A young girl, named Amara from Nairobi, stepped forward to share her story. "I was afraid to speak," she said softly. "But when I made my bead necklace, I found my voice. Now, I tell my story so others don't have to feel alone." Her words rippled through the room like a gentle wave. For Madison and Keanu, this was the true reward. Scene 4. A healing circle back in New York. The Foundation organized a healing circle event in Central Park. People of all ages came, each bringing a bead to add to a massive communal necklace. Stories were shared, stories of loss, hope, and resilience. Madison watched as strangers comforted strangers, united by the simple act of listening and understanding. The necklace grew longer, a physical testament to the power of collective healing. Scene 5. The Legacy Project inspired by the movement. A group of artists and technologists created an interactive digital platform called Beads of Grace. Users from around the world could upload stories, photos, and videos of their beads, building a virtual tapestry of hope. Keanu recorded a heartfelt message for the launch. "Each bead is a story. Each story is a light. Together, we shine brighter." The platform quickly became a beacon for those seeking connection in a fragmented world. Scene 6. Madison's revelation. One quiet evening, Madison sat by the river, the original necklace resting on her palm. She thought about how far they had come from a moment of humiliation on a plane to a movement that was changing lives. She realized something profound. Hope wasn't just about big gestures. It was about the small daily choices to be kind, to listen, and to believe in something better. Madison vowed to carry that lesson with her. Always. Scene 7. A new generation. Years later, a new generation wore the necklace. Children born. After Joey's story had touched the world, one of them was Ava's niece, a bright-eyed girl who had grown up hearing the story of the man who never took off his necklace. She looked at her own beads and smiled, because she knew, like Joey, that her story mattered, and so the future was woven, with hope, courage, and love. Epilogue. The necklace. Lives on. Keanu stood on a quiet hill overlooking the city at sunset. The necklace hung proudly around his neck, beads glistening in the fading light. He thought of Joey, of Madison, of the countless lives changed by a simple string of beads, and he knew one thing was true. The necklace was never just his. It belonged to all of them, to every person who dared to carry hope in their heart. And as long as they did, the story would never end.